We are at Subir, and this is the northeastern part of the district of Dangs. The beginning of the Dangs mission started when the collector of the Dangs district asked Father Navarro to help him out because there was a severe drought in the district and elsewhere. Navarro was at Unai, and he was more or less helping the Gamit tribals with food for work and other things. Now, most likely, the collector must have heard about this, and the district panchayat president. And what they did was to write a letter. In fact, it is the district panchayat president who wrote a letter to Father Navarro to come and stay in the Dangs. And the reason for that was because the Dangis made a beeline to Unai to get help from Father Navarro by way of food, grains and oil. So that's how the beginning started. When he was invited there by the president and then by the collector, he didn't think it was necessary for him to come and stay in the Dangs. He said that this is an unscheduled work that he could do from there. But when the collector insisted, collector was from the northeastern eastern part of India, and he was probably a Baptist. And he knew the way the Christians helped people. So that is why he insisted that Navarro should come and pitch his tent in the Dangs. And finally, Navarro must have reflected on it, prayed over it, and asked for permission from his then provincial, Father J.L. Arana, whether he could come and stay in the Dangs. So he very happily and readily agreed, and then with his good friend Father Corral, he scouted for land around. He asked first the collector whether he could give some land, but the collector said no, because he has no land at his disposal, at his discretionary power. So he said, but you can scout for land, and Pimpri would be a good place for the simple reason it is not very far from the railhead at Bagai, and it is not very far either from the headquarters at Ahwa of the district. There is a perennial river going by the village, and there is an all-weather road from Bagai to Ahwa. So there is an electric line crisscrossing the mountains, going from Bagai substation to Ahwa. So these were the major reasons that the collector said you try at Pimpri. And when he finally, after scouting much land, much of the district, he finally came precisely to Pimpri, and he found that plot where he finally pitched his tent. So he didn't know to whom it belonged. He inquired from a friendly forester to whom this land belonged. He said it belonged to the Raja. So he said, now how to get an introduction to the Raja. So he recollected that there were some people from the Dangs already at Unai hostel. So he met one of these chaps. I think his name is Amar Singh Khandu or someone, and he told him that he would like to start something like Unai at Pimpri. Would you take me to Raja at Pimpri? Then he said, of course I would, because he is my cousin, he says. And then the Raja went to Unai, met Father Navarro, and Navarro told him this is the piece of land that we would like to have, and the reason is to start something like what we have at Unai. He readily agreed, and not only agreed, immediately asked for an advance, and he gave him the advance, and made what we call an ordinary land deal writing. And then finally, when the transaction was complete, they got the proper documents. Although meanwhile it took lots of time, because what laws applicable in Gujarat is not enforceable in the Dance, because the Bhil royals had an agreement with the British. So they had to get special permission from the revenue department. So it was going up and down from our office to Gandhinagar and Gandhinagar back. So it was like that. Meanwhile, the collector who called him or invited him had been transferred. But he said he would make sure that things would move at Gandhinagar fast. But the clerks, I think, made sure that it doesn't move from our office itself. So finally he went and met his good friend Charlie Gomes, who was his provincial earlier. Then Charlie was already a bishop at that time, and he asked him whether he could help him in the matter. And Charlie readily agreed, and by that time the government at Gandhinagar fell. Chimanbai Patel's cabinet fell. So it was a governor's rule, and the governor's advisor was one of the friends of Surti, Mr. Surti, whom Charlie Gomes met, and then they put him in contact with, and most likely Surti must have told the advisor, I think it was Mr. Satarwala, and then in no time the permission came. And that's how the Pimpri mission started, and it was Guruchaga who built the Pimpri mission. He got a kind of a vague blueprint from Father Kasi of Bombay, and Guruchaga had to go every now and then to Bombay to get the complete picture of the blueprint, and then he would build it brick by brick on a shoestring budget. And the first resident guardian of the hostel, it was complete by 79-80, and 80 they started the hostel, and when the hostel started, it was the first resident guardian was Brother Guruchaga himself, because Navarro had gone to Spain to beg for money and materials, or whatever that he wanted. It is in May 80 that Navarro came in and settled. The Ahwa school was in. So when these transactions were going on between the collector and Father Navarro, the collector said, you Jesuits have the very best school all over the world and in India, but nothing in this district, she said. So she would lease government land if you start a school. So Navarro reached the then provincial, and asked for permission. So he said there is no wave in the province for a rural school, or any school for that matter at the moment, so it is not possible, he said. So immediately he met the provincial of the Vidruna sisters, and the Vidruna sisters very gladly accepted the proposal, and they started the now famous Didarshana school. So that's how, that was in about 75. And just before this transaction was going on, there was the first mass in that spot there. It was a bishop, of course he was not a bishop, Father Braganza, and Mendonça, that is a brother of Philomena, Sister Philomena, who was the first principal of the school, Sister Elvira, Then probably a sister from Chengalam, my little sister, who's, what's her name, Annamma, and Myla, I think. I don't know if anybody else was there. It's the first first mass that they had there, right? And afterwards, the school started. Once the mission, the Pimpri mission started, it must be in 83 or 84, around that time, a certain person from Sangan came to Navarro's place, and he told him, please come to my village. Village is called Bapkar, that is about 10-15 kilometers below Saputara, and from Sangan about 10 kilometers away. And he said, my daughter is ailing and very sick. You come and heal her, he said. Navarro, not being a charismatic as such, he said, there is no need for me to come. Where in the world is your village first, and how far it is? So he said it is Bapkal, and it must be about 50 and odd kilometers from here. He said, what you have to do is you take your daughter to a doctor, he said. The man was disappointed terribly. So seeing his disappointment, it got the better of Navarro. He said he would send his catechist, Janubai, there. And even then the man was quite downcast. So finally he said, all right, he would come. And that's how he went there. And lo and behold, he prayed over the child, and the child recovered. At least very satisfactorily recovered. And it was kind of near miraculous recovery. And that's how the mission, Sangan mission, started. And the person, Lakshubai, the father of this sick girl, is a charismatic, in fact. He prays over people and heals people, and in a true sense, inspired by the Spirit. And it is his work in Sangan area that made Sangan a flourishing mission. And of course, Subir started in a way when Myla came to Pimpri from northern missions. So he came from there. He had gone there from Sagbara for a short stint there, and from there he came to Pimpri. And before coming to Pimpri, he had been to Andheri, to Fuchs Anthropological Institute. And he had some idea how to work among the tribals from the Institute of Anthropology at Andheri. And when he came, his first concern was already to go and stay in a village. Of course, he knew Navarro already from Unnai. He was at least 2 years with Navarro there at Unnai. And that's why he came to Navarro. And it is the beginning of the mission. Mission as such started 80, and Myla was at 83 there. And then he stayed for some time at Bapkar, right? And but it was a short time. Then he came back to Pimpri, and he explored further areas, and he stayed at Wangan a longer period, which is very close to Pimpri. Now, what was his purpose in staying with the people? Simply to learn the language, to know their traditions and customs, their religion, their gods, their feasts and festivals. So that is the reason that he came. Once he had picked up sufficient language, he began to explore a new area, that is a northeastern dance, northeastern part of the dance. And that's how he went. He came to the side, and then initially he was at Duda. And he stayed with a family there, and his Rodu Mala. He had many children, boys. So some boys he already put in the Pimpri hostel for their education because they were not going to school, and even if they were going to the village school or ashram shalas, hardly anybody learned anything there, hardly anybody taught there. So over the years, the number of students at Pimpri increased from the eastern downs, northeastern downs, close to about 90 or 100. So that's the time, that was from 83 through say 90s, early 90s. That's the time he began to scout for a piece of land, because he realized that Pimpri cannot absorb any more children there. And then with his friend Tukaram Male, he scouted for the land, and finally they found this land. So Mala started his Padayatra with a friend, so that is Govind Avsia, Punya Gavid, Tukaram Mahale, and different people. And wherever he was invited, he began to speak anything and everything under the sun, beginning with agriculture till Trinity. So that's how he started proclaiming the gospel. And finally, he managed to get this piece of land. This is from the noble lady Savita Ben Chandrabai, who has about 30 hectares of land bequeathed by her husband. And this was an unproductive piece of land in a way, overrun by weed and wild beasts. So she readily agreed to make a kind of donation for a very good cause of education. Of course, there was an advantage in the sense her own grandchildren, so to say, were at Pimpri in our own school and hostel. So that facilitated getting this piece of land. It is about 4 hectares, undulating and uneven land, except a piece touching the Subir Pimble road, footer-sized court, flat and nice. So the land transaction was done with a great difficulty because, as I said before, the land regulations of Gujarat not enforceable in the downs. So that's how it had to go through special interventions. And the intervention fortunately happened when Godfrey, Father Godfrey de Rosario was at Gandhinagar as principal. And he said certainly he would help because he had very good connections, and with his charming ways, in no time he got permission for the land. Whereas it was going up and down between Ahwa and Gandhinagar and nothing happened. So the land was bought, was given, and then finally Maila pitched his tent 1993 at Subir. Then finally in 1998, December 25th, we heard that Deepdarshan has been attacked. That was in the evening that we heard that Deepdarshan was attacked. We had no idea something had happened at Subir. But then the wireless came late in the night, early in the morning. Early in the morning, the wireless came saying that Subir has attacked. Fortunately, the provincial was there. So immediately with the provincial, we rushed first to Deepdarshan and saw what happened there. Mainly the boys' hostel was attacked. And I think sister's residence was somewhat protected by the police or something, so they didn't dare enter there. But they reached here, a huge crowd, and mostly they were outsiders. Of course, they had co-opted some people from the local area, but by and large they were outsiders, means from Navsari, from Valsad, from probably Maharashtra, Surat, there. And these people were sitting for the Christmas dinner when the attack took place. Tony Myla, Ozzy, and some neighbors. And that's how the attack started. They began throwing stones first, then set fire to part of the hostel and part of the go-down, and set fire to the jeep and the motorcycle and gutted them. So meanwhile, Myla rushed towards the forest office because there was a wireless there. And he got a stone on his chest or somewhere, or leg, and also he got another stone somewhere. But meanwhile, he reached the forest office and wired our police headquarters that these things happened. So immediately the police came, and meanwhile these chaps had simply dispersed and ran away. So that's how the first attack started. And they started arson and loot in many other villages. Of course, it was mainly other Christian denominations whose churches and prayer halls that they destroyed. To the extent it was such an international uproar, not only national but international uproar. The reason was that it so happened that day morning when we reached with the provincial, there was Stani Jabamalai there. He came from Surat after hearing all these stories. And he was going back. We said, I told him, just see that some journalists know about this. And that's how the whole thing spread, just like in a jiffy, just like a wildfire. So it is nationally, internationally, the whole lot of electronic media and print media came. Otherwise, we had only from the the vernacular print media, and they were highly prejudiced. So once the national and international media took it up, there was such an uproar to the extent that then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee had to come down here. And then he first went to Deepdarshan, and he saw all the destruction that saw. To the extent he was surprised, "You have not removed anything from here," he said. And then he came to Pimpri, and he saw the same scene: the motorcycle and the jeep gutted, and other areas where the things were broken, this, that, and the other. He also felt that things, "You have not removed things from me," he said. So that's how the thing went. Then you had a line of electronic media coming not only from national television but also from European and other television sets. Then after that, Sonia Gandhi came, and she visited these places. Dev Gowda, the former Prime Minister, came. Then came Lalu Prasad, and he told the children and asked the children, "Do you know who I am?" They said, "No." "Father Tony, how is that? You do not have a television here?" He said, "No, I will give a television set," he said. And that, so he made sure that he had ample publicity with that. And when the Gujarat government heard this, they said, "Father, please don't take it, we'll give you a television set," they said. And then Paswan came, and so lots of these top leaders came, and that's how things calmed down. Of course, Mr. Vajpayee came in order to calm the international and national media more than anything else, because after seeing all this, he went back to Delhi and added a rider that we should have a debate on conversion, he said. Of course, he doesn't realize that this debate in the Constituent Assembly had taken place much before he thought of it. And the debate was precisely at the end to propagate one's religion. So that was added, the clause was added in that debate. So unless you want to change your constitution, there was no reason really for another debate on this issue. So that's how the attack took place. And since then, the government has been extremely careful that no untoward incidents take place in the dance or elsewhere. And since then, in fact, in Gujarat, on the whole, it is rather peaceful, I must say. Meanwhile, we know what is happening all around Gujarat. That is, whether it is Orissa, whether it's Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh. We know 2007-8 what happened in Kandamahal in Orissa. So wherever in Karnataka of late. So anyway, finally, though Father Navarro started the mission with the Vedrunas, he entered in a way with the Sindans. So when he was at Sanghan, I think it was the district collector, then district collector Sanjay Nandan called him and said, "Father, the government has a plan to develop Saputara as one of the best hill resorts, not only in Gujarat but in India. So the government wants a very good English medium school," he said. Of course, there was no way the Jesuits would take up that school. So naturally, he approached someone who could start it. That was the Sindan sisters. The reason was they were already at a Sangha. Meanwhile, I had intimated Father Arana, at the time holding, I think, Vicar General of the diocese, and if I'm not mistaken, also the provincial. Also Francis. Francis Parmar, he was the acting provincial, and Arana. Both I informed them that there is a chance now to start something at Saputara. So if you have any plan, you start. Meanwhile, Navarro went ahead with the Sindans, and Sindans said they would start, and that's how Sindans began. And it was Brother Galitia who started building the thing with his team of people of Manand, Sumanbai the architect, and others who were. And of course, they put up a magnificent school building, an elegant hostel, and residence, etc. And I think in 2001 they started already the school. And it is now in the 8th standard, if I'm not mistaken now. They have 200, 300 children already, doing from the kindergarten till the 8th standard. Whether they got permission to start the 9th is not known to me. So when I came to Pimpri, I came in 87 to Pimpri from Unai. I was 83, 87 at Unai, and before that I was at Viara for about 8.5 years. So at Viara, I had some introduction to the tribal language. Whereas before that at Jankwa, we were dealing in Gujarati. So here the Gamit language already Father Joe Lobo had the Gospels in Gamit and the prayer service in Gamit, etc. So I had some, and of course in Bihar I happened to learn some Gamit there. And